COVINO Rich, we start where we left off. So we're doing Friday show, and we were successful. Not that you care. Maybe you do. We talked about how at the end of the show, we were all going to stay off our phones for a couple hours and avoid the fight results and start them at COVINO's house a couple hours later and have our fight night. But the New York City Times Square party had already begun, and we said, no, I'm not going to watch this on my phone. COVINO, just don't look at your phone for the next 2 hours unless it's your daughter or someone texting you. Let's watch the fights on delay.
And, yeah, that worked. So we got to my place, and immediately it was just low energy. It's like, what's going on here? And that's what happens when you fill the place up with not real fans, just VIPs. There's no passion involved. And the truth of the matter is, Turkey Al-Sheikh, although props to his attempt at creating great events, when you're paying these boxers so much, you're taking the heart out of it, the desire and fury and fight to win, because they're just dancing around the whole time. Low energy fights, low energy atmosphere, only 200, 300 VIPs were there, which translates to a boring watch for the viewer. So fatal fury, there was no fury involved at all. And the only fatal thing I saw was the death of boxing over the weekend. Or, like I said, was it? I'll explain, because, man, we got some really disappointing fights. And it really sucks when you're amped up about it. You're paying $90 for these fights. And then you're inviting people over. And then when it's a dud of a card, you feel responsible as the host. Like, hey, guys, thanks for coming, but sorry the fights were boring.
Then heck, COVINO's justifying like he's the promoter. But,
but I am the promoter, Rich, because I've been hyping that up on this show for months.
I mean,
you know what I mean? Telling friends about it, family about it. And then you get that, and you're like, yo, guys.
Their display embarrassed me.
You're embarrassing me, and you realize this is prize fighting. You should be fighting for the prize. And that's where I think you get lost. When you're paying people so much, people get too content, and they get lazy, and they lose that fire.
I have a theory about that we're going to get to in a little bit, but I mean, you are the boy that cried Fight of the Year. I believe, quote Steve COVINO, yo, if you're not like watching boxing Friday nights when you gotta watch, and you're saying Devin Haney's fighting, Ryan Garcia, Teofimo Lopez,
3 of the 4 kings, bro.
I mean, how many times did you say 3 of the 4 kings last week?
You'd never see a card with Hearns, Hagler, and Duran. That disappointing.
Dude, I told you,
I'd
rather
Sugar Ray Leonard.
3 kings. I'd rather see Haku, King Harley Race, and the Macho King. Like, this was the weakest crap I've ever seen. And I will say, sometimes on paper, something looks cooler than it ends up being. I'm not saying the UFC at the Sphere in Las Vegas was a fail, but I remember thinking that was going to be a lot cooler than it was.
Noche.
If you said
the Tyson fight,
the Tyson-Jake Paul fight, I mean, we thought that was going to be, way cooler. And I think when you heard Times Square, outdoors, some of the biggest names, yeah, there were cool moments where it's like, oh, look, Teofimo's getting out of an old-school taxi cab on his way to the ring, and Michael Buffer's there, and, the return of Jim Lampley and Mike Tyson was part of the announcing crew. That was the highlight, to be honest. We said there's 2 highlights of this past weekend.
I don't know how to feel about this fight. This fight is kind of confusing to me. Actually, the highlights were Rolly Romero with the upset, the return of Jim Lampley, who himself admitted it was a snooze fest.
It was great with Tarver.
Yeah, he was great with Tarver. Their chemistry, but the return of Lampley was great. And the big winner was Carlo's Bake Shop because it got lots of airtime.
In the background.
In the background from Times Square.
Buddy the Cake Boss was really pumped.
He was the big winner of the weekend.
But Jim Lampley, who, returned to form, and it made you realize his voice is so synonymous with big fights. And he was honest. He said, if there was ever a fight that might make you want to snooze, take a little nap, this is the one.
Because Devin Haney, now we're talking about Devin Haney Ramirez. Devin Haney, they say PTSD from getting knocked out from Garcia, but here's a guy trying to redeem himself, and he's dancing around, running around the whole time. Ramirez couldn't even get to him.
Well,
so, man, talk about disappointing. And again, you have people over, you're trying to have a great time. These guys are getting paid lots of money to do what? And it's just disappointing for everybody when boxing needs it most. And then it continued Saturday night. Canelo Alvarez gets in the ring, again, with an overpaid opponent. Skull's there dancing around the whole time. Boring fight. Made $3 million for what? Doing the moonwalk the entire time?
Yeah.
You want to see a fight. That's what it is, right? A fight, or is it Dancing with the Stars? And that is disappointing on a holiday weekend. It's the biggest fight weekend of the year. Luckily, I think it was saved, or was it?
No, not at all. You said this to me earlier, and I'm like, no one watches ESPN Plus Sunday Night Fight.
Well, it was a great fight.
Oh,
on
congratulations.
Sunday night, one of the pound for pound bests, Inoue.
No one even knows that guy.
You sound foolish. Don't even say that, because he's one of the best in the game for years.
You just said the other guys were the best in the game.
Inoue, it fights
Who's
at
the
122.
best in the game?
There's different weight divisions, you clown. So
Yeah, but I
Inoue
mean,
fought Cardenas Sunday night as part of a big fight
You
weekend.
think people watching Game 7s in hockey or and basketball, or you think they're watching Inoue on ESPN Plus?
Were you snorting pixie sticks before you came here? Let me finish what I'm going to say, at least. All hyped up.
You can't win!
Inoue won, even when he thought he wouldn't. This guy Cardenas gets in the ring, knocks down Inoue, second time in his career. Inoue comes back in a battle. Again, this is Sunday night. My point in bringing this up is this was a Sunday night fight, and it was one of the best fights I've seen in a long time, and it was on ESPN Plus, and nobody saw it. So I agree with you.
In a way, you think we're going to care.
Inoue came back, fought like a real champion. Two people really fighting with pride on the line, fighting for the prize, a real battle. And people are like, oh, man, thank God we got at least one good fight. But you know who saw that? Just real, true boxing fans. No one else saw that. It was on ESPN Plus. When you mentioned great basketball, great hockey, The Last of Us, a bunch of other things going on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
Who was really watching that? I agree with Rich, but he didn't even let me say it. You know, I agree with him. It was a great fight, but nobody watched. The fights we were hyped for and paid $90 for, wah, 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 wah. So it's just really disappointing as a fight.
Yeah, but
fan.
you know what?
So the question is, how do you fix it? And I have answers.
Well, you're the fool that bought into, you watch all these crap fights that were garbage, but just because Terrence Crawford comes out there and he's like, oh, wow, Canelo Crawford's going to happen in September, are you going to fall for the bait again?
That's where I'm getting at. So was it a disappointing weekend? Was it redeemed? In two ways, it was. On Saturday after the Canelo fight, they announced that Canelo Crawford's finally happening. And what's wild about it is Crawford's coming up in weight to 168 to fight Canelo, yet he's the bigger guy. That's what's crazy about it. Crawford's coming up in weight to finally fight the super fight for the super middleweight championship, 168, yet he's bigger than Canelo. But he's mean-mugging Canelo. Canelo's smirking at him, and you're like, this is what it's about. Because these two guys have too much dog in them, too much fight in them to give you a disappointing fight. It has to be a great fight. If not, that is the fatal fury of boxing. That's the final punch for boxing. That's the death of boxing if this doesn't deliver. So it was announced that that fight's going down 168 on September 12th. Canelo Crawford. So there's something redeeming. And then, of course, the Sunday night fight that nobody saw.
I don't know how you fix this, and I'll give you my analogy. I'll give you my analogy. When you pay NBA players $40, $50, $60 million a year, and you allow load management to happen, I know the NBA sort of, put the smack down a little bit. When you pay boxers a huge purse from Sheikh Ali Ababwa.
His name is Turki Al-Sheikh. His Excellency, mind you.
Turkey a la King. I'll have that.
On rye.
Turkey O'Toole from
Bennigan's
was fantastic.
But if the Sheik is paying tens of millions of dollars, if the
Sheik
NBA
don't like it.
If the NBA is paying tens of millions of dollars, but the players and fighters get away with this, they will not change. It's like my kids. If I tell my kids, yo, hey, stop fighting, listen to dad. If you don't stop listening, I'm going to take away your Pokemon cards and your iPads. If they know that dad's not really going to take away their iPads, they're not going to listen. And what motivation do these fighters have to put on a fight when, tell me the last time there was like, wow, that's a fight.
This Sunday night, Inoue versus Cardenas.
Dude.
It was Sunday night on ESPN Plus. It was a battle.
I'm sorry, that someone watched. Like, when was it? The big pay-per-view?
Connor Benn and
a big pay-per-view,
Eubank, 2 weeks ago.
Don't tell a big pay-per-view.
Hype fulfilled.
Like a name that anyone in this room knows other than you.
I mean, these are big names, bro. Just because you don't know them in boxing or in fighting, these are big names.
No, but I'm talking about big names that like Dan Byer, me, Sam would know, and we're sports fans. Like, We know
Man, the last one, I don't know the last one, but
thank you. My
yeah,
point
but
is,
I watched so many good fights, dude. So you're asking the wrong guy. It's just that these are the fights that even the casual fan should be pulled into, and they're duds. So that's what makes it bad. You got actual fight fans saying, "Yo, dudes, you got to watch this one."
I think,
and then it doesn't deliver. It doesn't look good for boxing. I'll admit it. But how do you fix it? Right? That's the question. 877-99 on Fox. No, the Turkey Al-Sheikh guy's doing everything he can to provide a great event, but he's overpaying these dudes. These are paydays that these fighters have never seen. If he made them more KO incentive or punch stat incentive or knockdown incentivized, maybe you'd see more of a battle. Instead of just handing out millions of dollars to these dudes, hey, listen, if you get a knockout, hey, if you knock this dude down, hey, if you hit X amount of punches on the punch stat, maybe you incentivize the payday. It's prize fighting. He can do whatever he wants. He's paying these dudes an exorbitant amount of money to do what? So he could call the shots if he wants to. And I think after that, it only seems like they're taking advantage of this dude. He has to do something like that if he's going to really change the game. Plus, Dana White could also change the game. You know, he's involved now, and he's also involved in the promotion of Canelo Crawford, I'm hearing. So he's going to do something to fix it. They got to do something to fix it. You got to incentivize, you mentioned your kids, just anybody, basketball players, fighters. When people are spoiled like that, they lose their hunger, their desire, their fury. And that goes to anything in life. You want to see the lazy guy at the office? He's overpaid. He's content. He's not working hard. He lost that hunger. I see it all the time. Why do people get lazy? Because they have no incentive.
how many times does a husband get a gut and stop being romantic for his wife?
He got lazy.
How many times does a wife put on a couple pounds and stop shaving her legs?
So if these dudes are making millions and millions of dollars just for showing up, of course they're going to dance around because he doesn't want to get his ass beat by Canelo.
But I'm saying it's not as easy as you think to correct this. So
it is because he's the guy paying them.
You think the Sheik could just come out and be like,
yeah, the Sheik don't like it, like Rock the Casbah. He don't like it.
Don't like it.
Well, Alvarez Crawford is going to be at Allegiant Stadium in Vegas, so right off the bat, that's going to be so much better. We missed that crowd noise.
Oh,
your guys' buddy who was there, he told us, he said, man, this feels like a COVID event.
Well, that's what
Al
P was like, yo, this reminds me of COVID. But that was one of the first things that Ryan Garcia said. You don't want to make excuses for the kid because, I mean, dude, after that long year layoff and all the criticism you got about Osterine, and if there was ever a time to prove that you were still the guy, it was that weekend, right? He said it felt surreal, like it felt like a sparring match because there was no real fans there. So you lose a little bit of the authenticity when you try to put on a spectacle, unfortunately. So, yeah, props for trying, but it didn't work out. All in all, it was a failed experiment. And I gave you my suggestions. We got that Canelo fight. There was a good fight on Sunday. How do you fix the problem? Because
are we just suckers, though, to say...
I think the Canelo fight's going to be dope. The Crawford-Canelo fight's going to be a real good fight.
I'd like to think
because these are two dudes that don't back down and they don't back up.
I'm just saying, we thought the fights on Friday were going to be good. We thought the Saturday fight was going to be good. How many times does the fight have to suck? How many times before it's just like, all right, dude, I'm not going to watch?
It's true, yeah. No, look, again, because these are the ones that you got casual fans tuning into, you expect them to deliver. There are great fights in between. I mentioned Conor Benn, Chris Eubank. That was 2 weeks ago. It was one of the most fantastic fights. It just wasn't big enough names for the casual fan. So great fighting exists. It's just incentivize the prize, the payday. Because there's no reason for someone to be embarrassed if they're getting paid millions of dollars anyway.
Fans have been saying that for years. Could the Sheik be the guy that does it? How many times have you thought, I don't mind these athletes getting paid tens of millions of dollars, but what if a professional baseball player was incentivized where it's like, if you hit 40 more home runs, that's when another 10 mil kicks in. Or, hey, 100
I think you got to, just based on results, man.
It would be collusion, but if all the teams got together and said, hey, we got to make this incentive-based now, I don't know where you would even start. I guess the Sheik can because it's his own league, right?
His excellency, yeah. I make it happen that way. Otherwise, people are not going to want to buy the pay-per-view if that's the result we're getting. We're getting these lazy, low-energy fights with lazy, low-energy fans. So that was the weekend, guys. It was really disappointing.
What was the worst fight?
I agree with Rich on that. Devin Haney Because Teofimo fought great. Barbosa couldn't do anything to him, though. So it was a dominating fight, kind of boring. It was the first fight, no one cared. Devin Haney-Ramirez was one of the worst fights ever, to the point where Jim Lampley couldn't pretend and lose his own credibility in pretending that it was a good fight. He admitted that it was a snooze fest. Even Mike Tyson was at a loss for words. Yeah, I don't know what to say right now. Because there was nothing to say. So, yeah, Devin Haney-Ramirez, I think, was the worst fight. Because Devin Haney just ran the whole time. Again, a guy with tons to prove. And then Ryan Garcia just got his ass whooped by Rolly Romero and didn't do anything. So, disappointing weekend of fights. However, props to the Pacers and the Warriors, because we're also comparing it to NBA playoffs, which is heating up right now.
That was sort of my point. Like,
Yeah,
if it's not going to deliver, you think anyone like? But
Well,
after,
the 2 Game 7s in the NBA were both kind of snoozers.
they were.
The standout game I was trying to convince you guys to turn it on last night was the double overtime Winnipeg Jets game.
And
you know what it's like,
did.
Danny G, when there's a fine woman who you've had your eye on for a long time, you finally get with her and it's a dud, and you're like, what?
That's how you felt.
It's not what I had in mind, man. She brought no action. What is going on here?
Yeah, your dog Theo had more energy than all the boxers combined.
My dog Theo was more exciting and entertaining. My dog Theo humping on Danny G's leg was more fun than watching these fights. Seriously, he had more fun than anybody.
I mean, thank God the company was good. And I have a story that I'm gonna save our Friday night because the fights stunk. But there was a story, and this is a great "What would you do?" and it has to do with pizza. And I can't tell you the last time I've been this aggravated.
Can you tell us, please, though, to wrap up this side of the story, how much you paid for the pizza? Because it really adds to the disappointment.
All right,
before you tell us what happened.
I'll tell you how much I paid for the
Yeah.
pizza. And then I have a story when we come back. And then here's the problem. Nowadays with pizzerias, I don't want to sound like an old guy. Nowadays, I call the pizzeria we love. Yeah, my guy, we don't got delivery guys, so you're going to have to go through Uber Eats or Grubhub or DoorDash, which stinks because that's like you're adding a step. And you're adding a step of someone that doesn't give a crap. Like if you work at a restaurant, you want to make sure your food gets to the person quick and fresh. DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, I don't trust any of this, which is why I never use it, but I had to. And after all the fees, taxes, tip, which they make you include all
Hold on.
this.
We have exclusive audio of Rich.
That'll be $94.
Yeah.
Close.
Not far off.
2 pies.
Jeez.
A large regular pizza, large cheese, and a large Sicilian. $78.
Okay, I did the quick math. $78 for 2 pies, plus the $99 we paid for the fight. It's $177.
Good math, bro. You need a calculator for that?
But you know how good that pizza has to be to even balance out the disappointment of that night? You get all your friends together for this level of disappointment, it's horrible.
But
that's a lot of money.